The story opens in the low, waterlogged lands of Zeeland in 1944, where the sea presses close against the fields and dikes decide who lives dry and who drowns. War has been grinding across Europe for years, but here it feels both distant and unavoidable, like thunder that never fully fades. The Germans occupy the Netherlands, their checkpoints cutting through villages, their flags hanging where local banners once flew. People move carefully, speaking softly, always aware that the wrong word can cost a life. Among them is Tuntje Jansma, a young Dutch woman living on Walcheren Island. She works at a small photography shop, a job that gives her a thin shield of normalcy. Tuntje has learned how to survive under occupation by keeping her head down. She avoids politics, avoids the resistance, avoids risk. Her family needs her alive, not brave. But survival in occupied land is a fragile thing, and choices have a way of forcing themselves on people who try not to make them. Across the water, the Allied war machine is moving fast. Antwerp has been liberated, but its port is useless as long as the Germans control the Scheldt estuary. Without opening that waterway, Allied supplies cannot flow. The decision is made to clear the region, no matter the cost. Canadian forces are assigned to the task, soldiers who are exhausted from years of fighting but still pushing forward because the war demands it. Among them is William Sinclair, a young Canadian private. He is far from home, far from the open fields and familiar faces of Canada. William is not a hardened hero. He is thoughtful, cautious, and deeply aware of how easily men die. He writes letters he never sends and carries memories of friends already lost. The Scheldt operation promises more mud, more blood, and more names added to that invisible list he keeps in his head. At the same time, on the German side, there is Marinus van Staveren, a Dutchman who has chosen a different path. He serves in the German army, wearing there. The days that follow blur into a cycle of exhaustion and fear. The fighting does not pause to let anyone recover. Rain falls steadily, mixing with smoke and mud until everything smells of wet earth and cordite. The flooded fields turn movement into punishment. Men slip, sink, and struggle to pull themselves free, all while knowing that a single careless sound can draw fire. William's unit is reduced quickly. Faces he learned only days ago are gone, some dead, some evacuated with wounds that will never fully heal. Leadership changes hands more than once as officers fall. Orders arrive late or not at all. The battle feels less like a grand strategy and more like survival measured in minutes. William finds himself listening harder than ever, reading the land, watching shadows, learning how to stay alive. At night, sleep comes in fragments. The cold bites through damp uniforms, and the sound of distant artillery never fully fades. William dreams of home and wakes to the reality of war pressing against him. He begins to understand that courage is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet, repetitive, and deeply tiring. On Walcheren, the consequences of the flooding become impossible to ignore. Sea water pours through broken dikes, swallowing farms and streets. Families crowd into upper floors or flee by boat when they can. Tuntje helps where she can, distributing food, offering shelter, using her knowledge of the area to guide people through safer routes. Each act feels small, but together they give her a sense of purpose she has not felt since the occupation began. Her involvement with the resistance deepens. She is asked to carry messages, to photograph German positions more deliberately this time, to observe troop movements. Fear still grips her every time she passes a checkpoint, but she learns how to hide it. She learns how to look ordinary. In occupied territory, invisibility becomes a skill. Marinus, meanwhile, feels the pressure of the failing German defense. Supplies A. As autumn deepens, the battle enters its most desperate stage. The air grows colder, and the flooded land begins to feel like a living enemy. Weapons rust, wounds fester, and fatigue settles into the bones of everyone involved. Victory is closer now, but it demands one final, brutal effort. William's unit is ordered to take a heavily fortified position that overlooks a crucial stretch of water. Intelligence says it is weakening, but the ground tells a different story. The approach is narrow, exposed, and lined with hidden machine gun nests. Everyone understands what this means. The attack will cost lives. The only question is how many. Before the assault, William shares a quiet moment with a fellow soldier, a man who talks about opening a small shop back home once the war is over. The conversation feels unreal, like discussing the future in a place that barely allows for the present. When the attack begins, that man is hit almost immediately. The future he imagined disappears in seconds, swallowed by smoke and noise. The fight for the position is savage. Explosions tear apart the earth. Shouts are lost in the roar of artillery. William advances inch by inch, driven by training and instinct. At one point, he finds himself face to face with a German soldier, both of them frozen for a heartbeat. The moment ends with a shot fired. William survives, but the image stays with him, sharp and unrelenting. Nearby, Marinus is stationed as German defenses crumble. Orders arrive that make little sense, contradicting each other as communication breaks down. He watches young soldiers panic, some barely trained, thrown into a fight they cannot win. When retreat is finally mentioned, it is too late to be orderly. Chaos takes over. In the confusion, Marinus is ordered to execute a suspected resistance member as an example. The man is older, frightened, and unarmed. Something in Marinus snaps. He lowers his weapon and refuses. The moment stretches dangerously. Refusal is treason. The fighting ends quietly, without the drama people expect from the end of a great battle. One day the guns are roaring, and the next there is only wind moving across flooded fields and the distant sound of water draining back toward the sea. The Scheldt is opened. Ships begin to move again. Strategically, it is a success. Humanly, it feels like standing in the aftermath of a storm that has stripped everything bare. Walcheren is left scarred and broken. The dikes that once protected the land are shattered, and villages sit half submerged in cold, grey water. Civilians return slowly, stepping through mud and wreckage, searching for homes that may no longer exist. Bodies are recovered where possible, buried in hurried graves marked by simple signs. For many families, there is nothing to bury at all. Tunja walks through what remains of her town, camera in hand once more, but now the purpose has changed. She photographs destruction, faces etched with loss, and small moments of survival. A woman sweeping water from her doorway. A child clutching a broken toy. These images are not for the occupiers or the resistance anymore. They are for memory. She understands now that forgetting would be another kind of betrayal. Her role in the resistance ends without ceremony. No medals. No parades. Just a quiet return to civilian life in a country trying to rebuild itself. At night, the memories return. The fear. The water rising. The knowledge of how close death always was. Yet she also carries something steadier. The knowledge that when the moment came, she chose to act. William is eventually cleared to leave the hospital. His wound heals, but not cleanly. He will walk with a slight limp for the rest of his life, a reminder of the flooded fields of the Netherlands. Before being shipped out, he visits the graves of fallen comrades. He does not speak. Words feel useless. He stands, remembers faces, and promises himself that he will live in a way that honors them. When William returns.